present. Mr. Bailey and our witness, the detective, Detective Roberts, you remain under oath, and
Yes,
you
sir.
may continue your examination, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have three pages of photographs. May I mark these as People's 131 A, B, and C?
Yes.
So I'm going to show you People's 131A. Is that a photograph of the letter that was inside the envelope before it was sent out for processing, forensic processing?
Yes, it is.
I'm going to show you People's 131B. Is that a photograph of the envelope after it had some sort of forensic processing?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And when things get checked for fingerprints, and is there like residue that's left behind on the document often?
Yes, it is. There is.
I'm going to show you 131C. Is that a picture of the envelope after forensic processing?
Yes.
I take it the flap wasn't cut off like that when you received it,
No, it was not.
and I take it that cut out of the area that you would lick on the seal was not in that condition when you received the envelope.
No, it wasn't.
Okay. The envelope, did it have a postmark on it?
Yes, it did.
And was that postmark December 23rd of the year 2000?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. When you, actually, I'm going to take out People's 129, remove the contents of the envelope. Is this the letter that was inside the envelope you received?
Yes, it is.
I assume it appeared much different when you first saw it, right?
Yes.
Okay. It wasn't faded like this?
No, it was not.
Okay. I'm going to place that item back inside this evidence envelope, People's 129. I'm now going to remove the contents of People's 128. And is that the envelope that you received from Beverly Hills Police Department?
Yes, it is.
And I assume it did not appear like this in terms of the coloration, discoloration, and the other residue from forensic testing at the point in time you received it. Is that fair?
No, it was clean.
Okay. There's also in this envelope, Your Honor, that's the flap of the envelope.
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'm going to place those back in the evidence envelope. Again, these items were sent out for fingerprint analysis.
Yes, they were.
Were you able to get any fingerprints off of them?
No.
And they were sent out for DNA analysis?
Yes, it was.
Were you able to get any DNA off the envelope
No.
or the letter?
No.
And based on your experience, obviously, does that mean no one ever touched these items, or does it mean you just weren't able to get forensic evidence off of them?
Just did not get any evidence off of it.
And was that uncommon,
No.
based on your background, training, experience?
Yes.
All right, so between December 24th and December 29th, did you interview numerous other individuals as part of your investigation?
Yes, I did.
On January 5th of the year 2000, did you get a call from someone with the New York State Police?
Yes, I did.
Who'd you get a call from?
I believe his name was Detective Becerra.
All right. And when you spoke with Detective Becerra on January 5th of the year 2000, did he tell you about a case that he had on the East Coast involving a defendant by the name of Robert Durst?
Yes, I did.
Objection to that, Your Honor.
Well, I can rephrase it,
You
actually.
misspoke.
I did. Did he tell you about an investigation he was involved in on the East Coast
Yes.
involving a suspect by the name of Robert Durst and his missing wife?
Yes.
I assume, did anybody prior to Susan Berman being killed, did anybody from New York State Police ever contact you and ask you to interview Susan Berman?
No.
Prior to Susan Berman getting killed, to your knowledge, did anyone from New York State Police contact anybody in your division, ask them to interview Susan Berman?
No.
On January 11th of the year 2000, was the case transferred from you to somebody else?
Yes.
Who was it transferred to?
Robbery Homicide Division.
And who was the lead detective that took over the case from you?
Logistics issues. The case became high publicity in the news media. This case was looking like it was going to start requiring a great deal of travel. And West LA, where I worked, was a very small unit. There was just myself and my partner to investigate cases. And with one or two of us gone, there was no one there to work West LA, so it was transferred to RHD, which has the manpower.
And RHD, is that the Robbery Homicide Division?
Yes, it is.
And is that a division of LAPD that is located downtown?
Yes, it is.
And do they handle higher profile and or more complex or significant cases?
Yes, they do.
Okay. And which detective in particular was it assigned to at RHD?
Paul Coulter.
Okay. On January 11th of the year 2000, did you conduct a walkthrough of 1527 Benedict Canyon, the crime scene, with Paul Coulter?
Yes, I did.
And on that date, January 11th, did you recover more items of evidence from the home?
Yes.
From the top drawer of the filing cabinet in the living room, did you recover a bank statement?
Yes.
And did you mark that? Did you collect that and mark it as evidence under the same case number as item 25?
Yes.
Did you recover a sheet of paper with a list of names and dollar amounts next to those names from that same top drawer?
Yes.
And did you collect that and book it as item 26 under that same case number?
Yes.
I'm going to show you. May I approach?
Yes.
First of all, I'm going to show you an envelope containing 2 documents. May I mark this envelope as People's 132, I believe?
Yes. Yes.
Do you recognize the writing on that?
It's my writing.
Okay. And is this the envelope you placed the bank statement you recovered, as well as this piece of paper with names and dollar amounts on it into?
Yes.
Doesn't it mark those 2 items separately, or can I keep them in this envelope all as 132?
You keep them as 132, do we need A and B? Or?
It's enclosed, so I'm gonna, if it'll close out the statement.
All right, that's fine.
Okay. So I'm going to remove, first of all, a bank statement. And is this a bank statement that you recovered from this residence?
Yes, it is.
The Wells Fargo account in the name of Susan Berman?
Yes.
And it's 2 pages, but they're double-sided, so I guess it's 4 pages. On the third page, does it show a deposit on November 21st of $25,500 total cumulative deposit?
Yes.
And I'm going to take out of that envelope People's 132, this other piece of paper. This is the piece of paper containing names and amounts of money next to the names that you recovered from her top
Yes.
the drawer of that filing cabinet.
Yes.
After you did that walkthrough with Detective Coulter, did you have any further involvement in this case?
No, that was it.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I apologize, Your Honor. For the
Yes.
record, the bank statement as well as this list of names and dollar amounts, I'm going to place it back inside the envelope labeled People's 132.
Yes, thank you.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. Sir, as a homicide detective, isn't the time of death an important concern?
Yes, it is.
And in order to determine time of death, you perform certain functions at the crime scene to try to help figure out what the time of death is. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
So, for example, you can collect items that could bear on the time of death, correct?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, too. In spite of the governor, I have to keep wearing this.
The judge overruled the governor.
As far as I'm concerned.
We, yeah, our courts require the wearing a mask for the time being.
I'll speak louder, I'm
We're
sorry.
sorting that out, and eventually, soon, I expect won't require it, but it is our rule at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, you would collect items, for example, that might bear on the time of death, correct?
Do one more time.
Sorry, sir. Did you collect items that might bear on the time of death? Is that one of the functions of a homicide detective?
Yes.
Okay, so did you notice when you were in the house the first time that there were food items in the kitchen?
Yes.
Did you collect those food items?
No.
Did you determine whether, or remember, as you testify today, whether it was dinner items, breakfast items, lunch items?
Food items I didn't pay a lot of attention to.
So one of the ways to evaluate the time of death would be to look at perhaps the last thing the person ate, correct?
Perhaps.
Okay, but in this case, you didn't do that, correct?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you collect the paper and secure that, the newspaper?
No, I did not.
Okay, and that newspapers generally have the date on them, do they not?
Yes, it does.
Okay. But when you got there, had the body been removed?
Had it been moved?
Yeah, removed.
Removed? No.
It was still there.
Yes.
When was the first time you arrived on the scene, sir?
2:50 in the afternoon, December 24th.
And there were uniformed police officers present?
Yes,
Okay, and they had secured the place? They had made the first entry, correct?
that's correct.
And they told you that, correct?
Correct.
If they told us that they weren't wearing gloves and booties and you weren't wearing gloves or booties, would that be accurate?
That would be accurate.
So they'd secured the place as the initial people to make sure that maybe the suspect wasn't there or someone might still be alive. But once that happens and they've secured the premises, your job is to come in and investigate, correct?
That's correct.
And you are trying to gather as much physical evidence as you can so that you can eventually provide that to prosecutors like we have here to try to prove a case, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and you're sensitive to the fact that crime scenes can be very delicate, correct?
Absolutely.
But in spite of that, and you were not wearing any protective gear, were you?
No, I was not.
Okay. Did you collect the material in her office area on the first day that you came in?
No, I did not.
Okay. You waited, from what I understand, almost 2 weeks to do that, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you collect the stamps that were on her desk?
Stamps?
Yes, postage stamps.
No.
Okay. You found a shell casing, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you identified that as a 9mm, correct?
Correct.
Now, is it fair to say, and I'm no expert, but I believe that a 9mm is among the most common of calibers of bullets. Is that fair, along with 22s?
That's correct.
Okay. So it was not some obscure ammunition, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you said that next to the body was some dog feces, is that correct?
Dog food?
Feces, poop.
I don't recall.
Well, do you remember saying that you thought that the towel and the papers on the floor were there to cover what the dogs had left behind?
I didn't say that.
Okay, do you remember reading your report before you testified?
I did not read that, no.
Okay, so you don't recall that?
I don't recall.
Okay, but the if photos show that there was dog poop and a paper and towels next to the body, that would be accurate of what the scene looked like, correct?
I'd have to look at the photo again. I do not recall that.
Okay, did you collect any towels, either cloth towels or paper towels that were next to the body of Susan Berman?
No, I did not.
Okay, and of course, towels can be a great source of fiber evidence or DNA evidence, correct?
Possibly.
Your Honor.
Sorry. Overruled.
Your answer was, it can be, correct?
Possibly, yes.
Okay. Now, when you got there on the 26th, you say you checked the windows, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, do you remember telling Mr. Balian,
Objection misstates testimony on the 26th. He's talking about the 24th.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. When you first got there, you checked the windows, you said, correct?
That's correct.
Remember telling Mr. Balian you didn't really remember things, but you had to rely on your report in order to remember these events because they're so long ago?
Yes.
Do you remember seeing anywhere in your report that you checked the windows?
Yes, in the crime scene notes.
In which report?
A report written by my partner, Detective Hayes.
Okay, you read that as well?
I read that.
Okay. You come back, how many times do you come back to the crime scene?
3, I believe.
Okay. You learned in the course of your investigation that civilians had actually entered the house while your ongoing investigation was occurring by climbing through a window, correct?
I found that out, yes.
Okay. And there were actually 2 people who were able to get into this secured house, isn't that true?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Did you leave the windows unlocked?
I don't believe I did.
Okay. Did you observe any other officers leaving the windows unlocked?
No.
Okay. And of course, between the first visit, the second visit, and the third visit, people besides law enforcement were going into the house, correct?
That happened, yes.
Okay. And that really jeopardizes the security of the scene for purposes of evidence collection, doesn't it?
It can.
Okay. So if people are traipsing through a house before you've completed your investigation, it kind of handcuffs you a little bit on the security of the scene and what you're gathering, correct?
It could.
Okay. And when you first went in, what did you do to secure any fibers, like hair, human hair, that might have been on Susan Berman's body? Anything?
I did not do that. That was the responsibility of the coroner investigator.
Okay. Did you observe him do that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what did you observe him do?
I don't recall. It's standard procedure, but I don't recall what he did.
So you don't remember whether he followed standard procedure, do you? If you don't remember.
I don't remember.
Okay. Now, of the things that you did collect, what's done with that? It's sent out for processing, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's to discover whether or not there are potential fingerprint evidence, correct?
Correct.
Hair fiber evidence, correct?
Correct.
DNA evidence, correct?
Correct.
All the scientific things that can connect somebody to a crime scene, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the same thing was done with Ms. Berman's hard drive, correct?
Yes.
And that was sent out for whatever forensic value that would have, correct?
Yes.
People actually go on the computer and research and try to see if there's any connection between what's on the computer and the person who has unfortunately been murdered, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to show you a picture that's previously been marked as Defendant's Exhibit A3. If we could have that on the screen, please. Do you remember testifying earlier that there was no indication that there was any problems with any of the door jams?
Objection misstates testimony. He testified about exterior.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Sustained.
Okay, I won't do, I got it. Do you recall that the interior door in the room where Ms. Berman was found had chips on the floor by the door jamb?
Yes.
Okay. Did you dust that area for fingerprints?
I don't recall.
Okay. Did you check that area for hair fibers?
I don't recall.
Did you do anything to secure that area with respect to DNA?
No.
Court's indulgence, 1 minute.
Yes.
From, just one more moment, Your Honor. Sir, did you collect a box of plain envelopes that were on Ms. Berman's desk? Do you recall that?
I don't recall that.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Redirect?
Very brief. You testified on cross-examination that you didn't collect a newspaper to see, for instance, what date it was. Do you recall that question?
Yes, I do.
Were there notes made of information such as that to document it?
I believe there was.
May I approve?
Yes. Are you refreshing his recollection? Are you marking an exhibit?
No, I'm going to ask some questions. Would looking at the notes refresh your memory as to whether the newspaper was documented and whether the date was documented?
Yes, it would.
Do you recognize those notes?
Yes, I do.
Whose notes are those?
Written by Detective Hayes.
Okay, if you could read the top portion.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
To yourself.
To yourself,
Read it to
right.
yourself.
A single family.
No,
No,
Not
read
out
it
to yourself.
To yourself.
The portion, let me show you.
To see if it refreshes your recollection.
specifically reflecting newspaper.
Yes.
Does that refresh your memory?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and was it documented as to what the date of the newspaper was?
Yes.
What was the date?
December 22nd, 2000.
You testified on cross-examination that, or you were asked that you didn't write anywhere in your report that the windows were locked. Do you remember that question?
Yes.
Would it refresh your memory to actually look at your report to see if you didn't write anything about that?
I recall that I wrote, maybe I misunderstood the question. The windows were locked. I wrote it down that they were locked.
Okay, did you write in your report that the windows were closed and locked with screens in place?
Yes, I did.
Thank you, I have no further questions. Oh, well, hold on, one moment. Sorry, Norman. Thank you.
That it?
May I ask a couple more questions?
Yes?
You also had a forensic team examine the interior of the residence for fingerprints, is that right?
Yes, I did.
And you found nothing connecting, no fingerprints of the defendant in the house, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So, I want you to assume that the defendant was in the home, saw the body, picked up things off the desk, wrote a note, all inside that home, and actually was inside that home. Notwithstanding that fact, assuming that's true, are you saying there was still no forensic evidence saying he was there?
None was obtained.
Okay. And is that out of the ordinary for you, that someone might admittedly be inside a home but not leave a trace? Is that out of the ordinary?
No.
Thank you.
All right, additional cross-examination.
But you really didn't take everything, did you?
Excuse me?
You didn't really take everything to have it tested, did you? You left the newspaper, correct?
There was things left, yes.
Okay. You left the envelopes that were on her desk, correct?
But I did not have any clue what I was searching for at the time. I had a person who was executed laying on the floor,
Right?
I'm sorry,
and that's
say
all we
that- I'm
had.
sorry, say that last part again? I did not have any clue what I was searching for at that time.
At that time, yes.
But
He said I had a person executed lying on the floor.
But you had 3 weeks in which to collect anything that you could to gather forensic evidence, correct?
And as I continued to
Correct?
yes, correct. As I interviewed witnesses and gained more information about the victim, I was going back looking for more evidence, yes.
Okay, but you didn't take the envelopes, correct?
I'm not sure what envelope you're talking about.
The ones that were on her desk, the
Okay.
stationery. You didn't take that, did you?
No.
Okay. And you didn't take the coffee cup to see whether or not somebody's fingerprints were on it besides Mr. Durst, correct?
I did not book a coffee cup.
Okay. You didn't take any of the utensils that were in the kitchen to see if anybody else had been in the house, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay. You didn't, you basically left just about everything that would have a fingerprint of the person besides Mr. Durst who was in the house, correct?
I had things fingerprinted I thought might be useful.
Okay, but not wanting to argue with you, you will acknowledge to the jury that there were multiple items that were never taken from the house to be tested, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Is the witness be excused?
Yes.
Oh,
Chestnut?
thank you, Your Honor, yes.
You're excused. Thank you. I wanted to talk to the lawyers about a couple things. I don't need that much time, maybe 5 minutes or so, but.
I have two very quick stipulations.
Let's do the stipulations and then we'll break early. Let the jury break early.
Okay. The first one, may I mark this as People's 133?
Yes. And attached to this stipulation is a two-page document. May I mark this two-page document as People's 134? Yes.
The document marked for identification as People's Exhibit 134 is a true and correct copy of a business record on file with the California Department of Motor Vehicles. This document will be referred to as the Isuzu Trooper document. The Isuzu Trooper document establishes that a 1988 Isuzu Trooper with license plate number 2LCX530 was registered to Susan Berman, and that Susan Berman paid $1,200 for the vehicle on September 29, 2000. So stipulated. For the next stipulation. May I mark the stipulation as People's 135?
Yeah.
And a document that goes along with it. May I mark this as People's 136?
Yes. So, I don't,
Are they attack or second?
Oh, the stipulation's 135 and the exhibit that goes with it 136.
I see. Okay.
The document marked for identification as People's Exhibit 136 is a true and correct copy of a business record on file with the City Clerk's Office of New York City, establishing that on December 11, 2000, defendant Robert Durst legally married Deborah Cheriton in the state of New York. So stipulated?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Court accept the stipulation.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll resume at 1:30. Do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. We'll see you at 1:30.
You're unmuted.
So, back in session, jurors are not present. We went sidebar, Mr. DeGuerin and Mr. Chesnoff, again, raised the issue of request to question this witness about other suspects that he might have considered or what steps he took to rule out other suspects. I've already had a hearing on this and there is not sufficient evidence under California law to present such evidence to a jury. I don't think there's anything about this testimony that changes that dynamic or opens the door in any way to discussion of these essentially red herrings. But Mr. Chesnoff, you may speak further if you wish.
No, I thank you for making a record on it, Your Honor. We briefed it. They did talk about what he did as far as an investigation, but we'll submit based on our prior pleadings, unless Mr. DeGuerin wants to add something.
I think it's appropriate to put in the record at this time, since the court's ruling on it, that there is evidence that the landlady, Dee Baskin, had threatened Susan Berman with a gun, and that later the police issued a search warrant for Dee Baskin's house and searched for a gun.
And I don't, that's not new to me. I've heard that before. So Mr.
I just wanted it in the record when we were discussing this.
All right, well, did you want, on that one point, do you wish to add anything? Because I recall that didn't amount to evidence sufficient. to
We
meet
litigated
California.
this repeatedly. This is not new information. They did not meet the HALT standard as the court previously indicated. This is a resolved issue, nothing new.
Okay, but that is part of the record, Mr. DeGuerin, what you just described. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice
All
one.
right, we're in a recess now.
Nice lunch, Your Honor.